I just checked it.
Okay. Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta, no matter where in this weird, wacky and wonderful world you might be. Thanks for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. He does look a bit dodgy in black and white, doesn't he? We got a special guest in the house. The icon is back. Let's rock and roll. Let's buy and sell.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Everyone, good morning, good afternoon, no matter where you are. Thanks for joining us here at Squad Central once again and back in the house. A bonus evening with him tonight, Mr. Super Kevin Campbell, my podcast brother from another mother.
Squaddies, at ease. We want to make it sharp tonight, so let's go.
We have podcast royalty in the house. He's back for his second round this season. We absolutely love and adore Mr. Andrew Mangan, otherwise known as the podfather, Mr. Arseblog himself.
Good evening. Lovely to be back in such felicitous circumstances as well.
Oof, big words, big words. Hold it, hold the mayo.
It's nice that we're top of the table. That's where I was going.
Brilliant stuff. See, Matty K, you asked and I delivered. You asked for Arseblog, here he is. Tammy Steele's our chief like officer, ready to keep her eye on what's going on in the house. Good evening to all of you, Mark B, the rest of the squaddies, and those listening on our audio platforms. Thanks for joining us on replay as well. Right, let's get stuck into it. We're back, Andrew. I asked Andrew, feel free. I didn't, there's no ads on this show. Feel free to say exactly what you said. I did ask Andrew, do you have the stomach for the next 10 games? And your response was?
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, I do. But I'm doing it one game at a time. I don't have it.
Yes.
Like, I need a cow's stomach for all 10 games to think about it. But it's just one game at a time. I think my stomach can handle that. And like I said to you, this is, it is in equal measure terrifying and exciting and exhilarating and terrifying again, because we know what's there and we know what we could win. We also know what we could lose. But my God, I'd much rather be doing this than trying to think about another 8th or 7th place finish or finishing 5th with that lot coming 4th. Come on, this is where we've wanted to be for a long time, and I'm all in. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just so pumped, and I hope these boys can get us over the line.
I love it. Super Kev's response when Andrew answered the question just in the green room before we came was just brilliant. It's so Super Kev. He's been on this from day one and hasn't relented. So, all right. So we know our starting 11. We love the players. We've fallen in love with them all over again. There are a few out on loan and there are some that aren't. So I wanted to get stuck into a couple of buy, sell, deal or no deal type conversations with you guys in our first segment. Then we're going to play Finish the Sentence and Oh My Word. Have a little bit of fun as well. So let's take a look at, firstly, the big deal that was reported today. Got to get your take on this. It's the deal we've all wanted. It's the one that we want the most. Our darling, our star boy, the man himself, Mr. Arsenal these days, Bukayo Saka. Andrew, I'll start with you. Do you like the deal? You like the terms of the deal? This is massive. Your thoughts?
I mean, give him what he wants. He has earned it. He deserves everything he gets from this football club right now. He has just been outstanding the way he has delivered for club and for country. It doesn't make much difference to me what he does for England. I know it does for some of you, but he does it at the top level and has been doing it for a long time. He's 21 years of age. When you think about what is to come from Bukayo Saka, it's actually frightening. And by frightening, I mean it's frightening for defenders. It's frightening for the other teams in the Premier League. It's not frightening for us. He's just so good, so outstanding. He earns every penny of what he gets. He plays pretty much every game. Mikel Arteta loves him, obviously, and plays him all the time. So it's not as if he picks and chooses games or anything like that. He's in there, he's doing it, he's delivering, he's scoring goals, he's creating. He is just absolutely wonderful, and I love him, and I'm just so looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to this team over the next number of years.
I love it. Super Kev. I mean, you know, you've been young at Arsenal. He's redefining what it means to be a young player coming through at the Arsenal. Just for you today, I'm going to put up your favorite picture of this season so far. One of them anyway, because of Benjamin in the background.
In the background, just like, hey, it's like Fonzie.
It
you
is
remember
Fonzie.
Happy Days? Fonzie's like, hey.
With his one sexy short up as well.
Exactly. It's all going on. It's all going on. If I'm honest with you, Sophie, the money is irrelevant to me. And I think, yeah, he's going to get a good contract, a big contract or whatever. But I think the money, we shouldn't even talk money. The key was securing him at our football club for a long time. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to secure him. We've secured Martinelli already. We've secured Gabriel. There's Odegaard to come. There's Saliba to come. You know, this team, they're outplaying their contracts. Let's be honest, they are. And we want them to go and win it because we want them to be the first team in the Emirates to be title winners and to be challenging for Champions Leagues, etc. They're good enough. They're young enough. They've got enough football in front of them. As Andrew quite rightly said, the future is so much more bigger than our past or even our here and now.
Interesting.
If we can get that title in the bag, I think it will take this squad to the next level. I really do. So Saka deserves it.
Squad and club. And I've got a little bit on that in the next segment for both of you as well. Everyone is saying literally what Andrew's saying, pay them what they want, all class players. You mentioned Odegaard, and I just wanted to touch on him real quick, swinging back to Andrew. Rumors of a new deal for him as well. I don't know what you know, Andrew, but one that maybe takes him to 2030. Undoubtedly, Captain Fantastic, having a brilliant season. Real Madrid pulling their hair out. You love to see it. What say you about Captain O?
Well, I think Kev made a great point there that they're all outplaying their contracts. They're all doing so much that they're earning themselves new deals. And I Kev is right. It's not really about the money side of things. It's about making sure that you secure these players, but you're also cognizant of the fact that they are delivering. They're providing to the team everything that you want them to, and there's going to be reward for that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Odegaard sign a new deal. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aaron Ramsdale sign a new deal, even Ben White sign a new deal, to just sort of demonstrate from the club side of things that, okay, we're probably a little bit ahead of schedule here. We're a little bit ahead of where we thought we were going to be. And one of the reasons for that is you know, as an individual, as part of this team, you are delivering, you're producing, you're playing at a consistent level. And I think that's maybe a conversation that we don't talk too much about is this season, the level of consistency, not just as a collective, but the individuals. Like, do you remember when Ben White had a bad game? I can't remember, you know, bad in inverted commas. He was taken off at halftime. I think he got a booking. Was it against Man United?
Man United, I think.
Man United, yeah.
He's taken off at halftime, and everyone's like, whoa, what's that? Like, because he hasn't done that all season. We haven't seen that from him all season. And that tells you just how good he's been over the course of these games. So I think it's a really good strategy from the club. They're building a team, but they're also showing that if you produce, if you're on top of your game, then, you know, we want to keep you here and we want to make you a fundamental part of what we're doing. So I think there's a few players in this team that will probably sign new contracts between now and maybe the start of next season.
Yeah, great points, both of you. One that I have to ask because our listeners have asked me to ask you, and one that they feel, Kevin, you've always been very confident all along that Big Willie will sign. Some think that maybe he could be tempted, but they say it's close. Just reassure the troops before we move on here about Saliba.
Guys, I've got guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We've got him in our team. he's going to be an absolute stalwart for years to come. He's in our building, and we will be crazy, absolutely crazy, to let him leave. So whenever he's in your building, he's under contract, you do the deal. And yeah, look, he's not going to be on Saka money, but he deserves good money. He's been out on loan, and remember, we've had battles on air about him being on loan, and will Mikel Arteta put his arm around him? He doesn't need it. He needed the stage. And boy, has he come back and proven that he can do it. He's only going to get better, like Saka, Ødegaard, Ramsdale, you name it. You named them, Martin. They're only going to get better. William Saliba is going to sign a new deal for Arsenal. That is for sure. Mikel Arteta cannot believe his luck. Think about it. He's been on loan. He brings him in from Marseille, and he's got 150, 200 million pound defender. Sign him. Don't mess around. He's going to be signed.
I love that. And, just real quick, the contract curse thing that is worrying some fans, Andrew. Perhaps the podfather himself could just alleviate the troops out there. The contract curse, the 300 grand number. Can I just remind everyone that Saka is building up to that number? That's not what he's going to be earning every week. That's with bonuses. But not bothered by the contract curse. Are you?
No, I mean, I think there's a big difference between Bukayo Saka signing a contract like this at 21 years of age, and Aubameyang and Mesut Ozil signing them in pretty much the September of their careers, when, at the time we didn't really have a great deal of choice other than to push the boat out and try and keep these guys. Hindsight might tell you should have done things a little bit differently, but at the time, when Ozil signed, everyone was happy. When Aubameyang signed, everyone was happy. But Saka is 21. I think the other thing you have to take into account with Bukayo Saka is the fact that he's brilliant for Arsenal, but he's also brilliant for England. And if you're Bukayo Saka's agent, you're saying to Arsenal and Edu and Mikel Arteta, like, I realize this is not Man City. I realize maybe this is not Manchester United. I realize blah, blah, blah. But my client is doing more than Jack Grealish. He's doing more than Phil Foden. He's doing more than X, Y, and Z in this team. And they're kind of the benchmark for his salary. So I think you have to be aware of the fact that when he goes away on international duty, I'm not saying they're sitting around comparing paychecks or anything like that, but players will talk, and he needs to be paid at a level that recognizes his importance to Arsenal, but also his standing and growing standing in the world game on the international stage as well. So I got no worries.
All right, cool.
So can I just add to what Andrew said there? Oh, after Saka scored that goal, and you saw the way Kane and everybody runs over to him, because they not only do they love him, they respect him as a player, Sophie. So that standing, he's carried Arsenal for 2 years a lot of the time. He's 21 years old. He's been carrying Arsenal Player of the Year 2 years from 19. It's amazing what this young man's doing. And Sophie, he needs to be on parity as the best played, or one of the best paid players at Arsenal. So when he does go to England, everybody's like, yeah,
he's the man.
You got what you deserve.
Yeah. And he feels like a star, an emerging superstar. He's fallen into superstar status now, especially after the World Cup. Not only on the pitch but off the pitch, he's so marketable. He's such a wonderful young man, and the fact that he's our player. And dare I say, Kev, you played alongside him. He's your brother. Andrew, I know that there's a lot of players you loved and love, but if he wins the big ones, he's walking into Rocky love territory. He may even be there already with the younger folks. I mean, he's there. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, why not? He's their hero. He's their generation. He's the kid that's come through the academy, who's grown up at this football club and come through to be a star. And I think it's quite an interesting comparison, isn't it? Because everybody loved Rocky, not just as a player, but as a person as well. I think there's something similar with Bukayo Saka, in that every time you hear anybody talk about Bukayo Saka, whether it's an opposition player, an opposition manager, his international manager, they all love him. They all talk about what a great guy he is, and I think that probably puts him on a slight parallel with David Rocastle, who was adored for what he did on the pitch and the way he was off the pitch, and how he came through at this football club. And if Bukayo Saka could be the David Rocastle for this younger generation, then I don't think there's a higher praise that I could give him.
No, it'd be amazing. It's amazing. We're just loving seeing this, falling in love with players all over again. Right, let's get stuck into some muddy, tricky water, shall we? I'm not sure if this one's muddy or tricky. I think it's pretty clear, but I had to ask this one because when the troops ask, I have to deliver. He stays for both of you, right? He's one of the players who's lined up for another contract. Is he staying for both of you, Kev?
Yeah,
you keeping Xhaka?
Hey, listen, and you know what? You know my feelings on this, Soph. Andrew, I wanted him gone. I did, but he's made me eat humble pie so many times this season. He's been phenomenal this season. And do you know what, Sophie? He does have some issues in certain games at the top end of the pitch because he's not used to it. He's learning
Is that speed? Is that because of speed, Kev?
Maybe, but he's learning a new skill at 30 years old. So sometimes it's not always going to go his way. But do you know what, Sophie? We've needed Granit Xhaka so much this season. We have needed him. And for me, Sophie, I've done a 180, my love. I've done a 180. We need Granit Xhaka. And even if it's just we need Granit Xhaka as a squad player as well, so be it, because if we're going to get serious, we got to go for everything. So that means we've got to rotate this squad, and Granit Xhaka will be a key part.
And Andrew, for you, one of the things we've been talking about a little as we're evolving and emerging as a team is we're going to start getting into territory where we may lose players we like. I think we may have touched on that with you last time you were here. Xhaka's become a player that everyone's fallen in love with. Some were already in love with him. What's your take on him? I mean, in terms of keeping him, but what Kev said in terms of the importance a player of that ilk brings to the team.
Well, look, he's another one, isn't he, who's delivering consistently and scoring goals and making goals. And, Arteta challenged him to that, basically told him, I want you to play here. And if you don't do it, well, we'll find someone else. So he rose to the challenge. For me, he stays. Like I think everybody, I've had my ups and downs with Granit Xhaka over the years. Maybe now, with a bit of hindsight, you can look back and think perhaps it wasn't all Granit Xhaka's issues at the time. Maybe there was a bit more to it. Maybe, when the level of the team has risen, Granit Xhaka has risen with the level of the team. And the one thing I would say about him is that, like, he is, he clearly wants to win. He's a leader. The way he tries to play the game, the reliability, the consistency has been fantastic. And I think maybe in a couple of years' time, we might go back and look over some of the bits and pieces that happened with Granit Xhaka and have a slightly different take on some of them, as we now have maybe a more rounded view of him as a player and a person. But there's no question that, he has thrived under Mikel Arteta. And I think going into next season, we all want recruitments. We all want the team to improve. But I think Xhaka's got an important part to play as one of those senior guys in the dressing room.
And some familiarity is going to be important to a team that is still young and is going to be young next year as well. I wanted to just put this back up from Owen because I think this is a good point and something that we tend to forget. Players aren't cheap these days. And I know they're really good players, but it is true in terms of value, right? Kev, you talk about this a lot. Who you're going to bring in that can give you similar qualities or that experience, with that type of money. And I just wanted to throw that comment up there because I think it's important.
There'll be players, because there's players out of contract, and there's players who are playing maybe in a different league right now who, the team are going to need money because what's happening on the continent isn't what's happening in the Premier League. The Premier League is thriving. What's happening in the continent, a lot of these clubs have to balance books. So it's a good point by Owen, definitely is a good point. But I just think we'd have to fatten the squad up. outgoings, I'm sure we're going to deal with, Sophie.
We're getting to that next.
I'm sure we're going to deal with. But
There's a few.
incomings, I think, is going to be the key. If we're playing Champions League football, we're going to be going for league titles, etc.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's start with those outgoings, those players that are on loan. I honestly forgot that he still was a player. I tell you no lies, Andrew. I totally forgot about Pepe. I mean, this is wonderful in a way that we're forgetting about who's out there and who's on loan. I'm thinking some of these might be quick fire. This is a slam dunk sale, is it not?
For me, yeah, I think it's clear that he's not a player that Mikel Arteta has a great deal of trust in, not from an attacking perspective and certainly not from a defensive perspective. I think part of what makes this team tick is the cohesion, between those two aspects. You think back to the Leicester game. Do you remember that counter-attack that Leicester had?
Mm-hmm.
And who's the man chasing all the way back? Bukayo Saka. Not to bring it back to him, but, with the best will in the world, I don't know that Nicolas Pepe has the same kind of instincts. So given his contract situation, I think there's a year left, maybe. I just don't think he's in Mikel Arteta's plan. So sell to whoever and get whatever we can for him. It won't be anything close to what we paid for him, but I think his race is run, certainly at Arsenal.
Kev, this was a massive lesson, wasn't it? Sometimes players work out, sometimes they don't. He's the perfect example of an overly priced player, deal done by, dodginess. And, unfortunately, the player couldn't handle the pressure of it. Didn't work out playing wise either. There were some moments and glimpses of hope, but Pepe, time for him to leave, no?
Yeah, I think it is time for him to leave. But one thing I am going to say, Soph, and I'm going to say this with respect. When Pepe came in, we were nowhere near the team that we were now. So we brought in Mesut Ozil, and did he actually have the platform for his ability to make him really excel at Arsenal? Although he done great at Arsenal, did he really have that platform? We needed a centre-half. We needed a centre midfielder. I know Pepe had Partey for a bit and stuff, but the way we are now, and I'm not saying Pepe's the answer, because I think we would sell him, because Bukayo Saka, again, has outplayed. He's been the most consistent, etc. But if we're that team who are going to bring in so-called big players, we have to have the foundation to help them produce. I don't think we really had that previously. Now under Mikel Arteta, I think we've got it, but it's taken a little while to get there.
Did we have it for Ozil and Santi and Alexis? Maybe not even that, but because we talk about the DM missing and the back line not being the strongest.
Centre half, centre midfield. That holding one, because Santi could do it, but we needed an imposing centre midfielder who could retrieve the ball and get us playing. You look at Vieira, you look at Partey. These guys are these. I'm not saying Partey is Vieira, but that ilk. You need someone in that midfield when everybody runs forward who's going to sit in that midfield. And when anybody is on the counter-attack, you got to break it down. We just didn't have that. We spoke to Jack Wilshere, and Jack Wilshere said that was a real big problem for that team. So, I don't think we actually had enough for Pepe to fly. But look, Pepe had enough chances.
Yeah, he did have enough chances, whether the environment at times was... I mean, there was a time where Oba and Laka were firing together. FA Cup run was great. All right, let's get on to a couple, Andrew, that might be a little bit tricky. What do you think of this fella? He's at Norwich. He's not exactly setting the world on fire. I think he scored one goal. But what's your take on Marquinhos?
To be perfectly honest, I really haven't seen enough of him to make any proper judgment on him as a player. He's still really young, isn't he? And I think when he was brought in, we snatched him away from Wolves. They were about to buy him, but Wolves were going to bring him in and they were going to immediately loan him, I think, to Switzerland, to Grasshoppers or somebody like that. So I think that told you that in his development, he still had some way to go. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if he had another loan next season. I think that might be the one after which you judge him properly, see what he's done in English football. Maybe it might be a Premier League club. Maybe he'll go somewhere on the continent. He's doing, I think, okay at Norwich, but I think it's too early to say definitively what we've got on our hands, because I just haven't seen enough of him as a player.
Kev, I think that's a fair statement from Andrew in terms of what we've seen of him. We got kind of excited in that Europa League match, but really haven't seen enough, right?
Yeah, I think he came in, he done a job when we were maybe a little bit depleted. Smith Rowe wasn't around and stuff like that. He came in, he done okay, but he's so young. I think 2 years, a bit like Saliba, where you loan him out, you monitor him, you look again, and then he's had a lot of first team football. That's what we need. He needs first team football. He's not playing enough first team football for me at Norwich. So again, I think 2 years, after 2 years, he comes back in, then you assess him with the squad and see where we are. Because you know what, 2 years, who knows where we're going to be in 2 years.
Hopefully 2 Premier League titles in. Okay, here's one for you. Sold by Vincent Kompany and Thierry Henry. Lokonga never really lived up to it. Seems a bit lazy to me. I don't know if I'm being harsh, Andrew. Sambi. What do you do with Sambi?
I think they'll sell. I think they'll sell this summer. I think the fact that he was sent on loan in January when we needed a midfielder and we had to go to the death to bring in Jorginho from Chelsea told you a lot about his standing. He reminds me, maybe his situation reminds me a little bit of Nuno Tavares in that, he was brought in for a relatively reasonable fee. I know there's a fair difference between the two of them, but it wasn't earth-shattering. I just don't think he quite got up to speed and didn't quite get up to the level with the manager and with the squad. And like I say, the fact that we were scrambling for a midfielder in January and then we loaned him out, I mean, that sort of tells me that he would probably be better off somewhere else. And I think if somebody came in with an offer that was, more or less what we paid for him, maybe a little bit more, who knows, then I think we would take it.
Yeah, he's definitely a player who's had opportunities. Just don't see it with him. Kev, he hasn't. I mean, how many times has he played for Crystal Palace?
I think he's about
He's
nine.
played most of the time.
Nine
Yeah,
games.
he's played most of the time.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest with you, I think they were happy with him. So to be honest with you, they're happy with him, what he's asked to do. But, like anything, we talk about consistency, but there's also levels to the Premier League. And Arsenal's level has been so high. And he plays in a position when Thomas Partey isn't there. And it's probably the hardest place to come onto the pitch for Arsenal because Thomas Partey does so much. And if he doesn't do one of the things, like the positioning of Thomas Partey, we saw it at Old Trafford, and we saw it in the Cup at Manchester City. Just that position, you saw Odegaard, remonstrating to him. You've got to be.
That was a really poor game. Yeah.
And it's that's the difference at Arsenal now. At Arsenal, it's not just you've got talent. No, you've got to have the talent, but you've got to do the right things on the pitch. You've got to have that consistency. And I'm not so sure if we're going to see that consistency. So if we can trade, if we could get some money for him and then put a little bit more on, and then you're bringing in the likes of someone who I'm sure we're going to talk about later, then fine.
A lot of the listeners in chat, 350 of you in live chat, kiss that like button if you love this football conversation, are saying we should sell him to Vincent Kompany. So there you have it. Well done, squaddies. Good idea.
Might happen.
Yeah,
what about this fella? His loan deal Marseille started like house on fire. Dipped a little. We spoke to Matt Spiro about it as well. And, he definitely has talent, Andrew. What's your take on Nuno? Is he a keeper, or do you bank on maybe some of the good form he's shown this season in Liga?
Oh, I think he is just too chaotic for Mikel Arteta. Way too. He's Captain Chaos, isn't he? I mean, he really does have some incredible attacking verve. You know, the way he can drive, the way he can score goals, he can finish. You know, we've seen that at Marseille. You know, if you're a fullback and you see this guy, what an athlete he is as well. He's a big guy, he's quick, and he's tearing down the wing at you. You don't want any part of it. But I think there is, you know, as we've seen at Marseille, there have been some frustrations about the consistency in his game, or lack of consistency. So I hope that the good parts of his loan spell mean that there will be clubs across Europe interested, but I just don't see a way back for him at Arsenal. You know, he was taken off before halftime once. He was taken off at halftime once. You know, he was shipped down on loan pretty quickly last summer. I mean, he's got some talent, but I just think at this point he needs somebody to really mold him into something specific, and I don't think it's going to be Mikel Arteta. So I reckon he goes.
Kev, does he go?
Yeah, I think he thrives as a wing back, as a fullback. Dan, you mentioned Captain Chaos. It is chaotic because one game he could be unbelievable, and the next game he's panicking, and you just don't know what you're going to get. Unfortunately, he's not a fullback. You look at our fullbacks. Kieran Tierney can't even really get a proper game. That's because Zinchenko's unbelievable. So there's no part for him. Even if Kieran Tierney does decide he's going to go, this guy is not the answer. That's for sure. So I think we'll cash in on Tavares.
I love that picture, by the way. Just a reminder. Just a reminder, everyone.
Hey, by the way, do you remember when I was getting plenty of needle from the squaddies about Guendouzi coming back?
I did want him to stay for a while, but I did learn my lesson on that one. Yes. The humble pie on that one was nice with fresh cream. All right, who's next? Let's have a look at this one. Ooh, one of the highlights of the season so far, Andrew. What a moment. Blew the roof off the Emirates. This young fella. What are you going to do with Reiss, Andrew?
There's a really good question. I think he's out of contract in the summer.
Yes.
I guess the decision they have is like, do they think he's going to be capable of being a squad player in a team that hopefully is defending the Premier League title and is looking to go places in the Champions League? I'm kind of torn on this one. Like, I think he has shown this season that he is capable of delivering, and look how he delivered when he came on for Saka against Nottingham Forest. And I don't need to remind anyone what he did against Bournemouth, because I'm just thinking about it now and I'm getting goosebumps. I mean, what a goal. Unbelievable. Even if that's the last thing he ever does in an Arsenal shirt, it'll just be one of the greatest moments in the history of that stadium. I suppose the balance is, like, for him, like, what does he want to do in his career now? Does he want to go and play regularly? Is he going to play regularly with Martinelli on the left and Trossard there and Smith Rowe also an option there? Is he going to play regularly on the right with Bukayo Saka? I don't know. Well, I mean, I know he's not going to play when Saka's fit, right? Saka's got that position. So I think it might be a case of him deciding what's best for his career and maybe thinking, you know, I'll have to go to a different club, but if I can be first choice somewhere else, it's probably better for him in the long run than to spend another few seasons at Arsenal being a bit part player, you know. He's been unfortunate with injuries. You know, he's been in and out. There have been moments where he could have gone on loan. Even in January, he could have gone on loan, but he was injured again, I think, and couldn't leave. He's 22, coming on to 23 now, maybe. I mean, Kev, maybe you can answer better, but when you're that age, what do you want to do? Do you want to play every week, right?
Yeah, you do want to play, but I think the one problem he has is a gooner.
Yeah.
He's a gooner, you know. He wants to play for Arsenal, and he wants to be at the club. I think Mikel Arteta believes in him.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, you've mentioned two games there, Andrew, that he was phenomenal in. He was phenomenal against Forest when he came on, and he was phenomenal against Bournemouth at the end. You know, set one up, and then obviously scored the winner right at the death. I think they would make an offer to Reiss Nelson, and it'll be, you know, take it or leave it type of thing. If you want to stay, here's a contract for you. You know, thank you for what you've done. But if you do want to go and be a starter somewhere else, I think they'll respect that and say to him, you know, we wish you well. So I think Andrew's right. It's going to be up to him, but I think they will offer him something.
It's also, as fans, we want the Reiss Nelsons to stay, right? We want the Eddies to flourish and do well and be the superstar. We want Emile Smith-Rowe to be an integral part of the team. Not everyone is going to be Saka. Saka has set the bar so high now that for some of those other young players coming through, it's going to be a little bit tough. But let's carry on with this theme, Andrew, because I'm throwing Eddie in here for a reason, because I also wanted to talk about Balogun with you and Kev, because I've been doing the US men's national team pressers this week as they've been playing in the Nations League, etc. And Balogun has been pretty much, without playing or kicking a ball for them, one of the most dominant stories. And it's here everywhere. It's on Fox Soccer. It's on ESPN. It's a massive story. They want him bad. And he loves to be wanted. And he's feeling that love, which maybe he's felt a little bit from the Arsenal. Again, going out on loan doesn't mean we don't love him. Doesn't mean Mikel doesn't respect him. He'll see what Saliba's done. He'll see what, you know, he's doing now. So I put Eddie in there too, because this narrative that's building, which one do you keep, right? And Kev's talked about getting a prolific goal scorer. Well, Balogun's been prolific in Liga. Talk me through this a little bit with regards to Balogun, Eddie, and we'll get to Emile Smith-Rowe in just a sec.
Look, he's doing everything you could want him to do on loan. You know, he definitely needed to go on loan as well. You know, at an age, he's 21. He needs to go. He needs to play regularly. He needs to get out there and score goals. He had an okay spell with Borough at the end of last season, but it wasn't brilliant. And I think it's really impressive that he's gone and challenged himself in a different league with a different language. I know they've got a manager there who speaks English, but day to day and on the training ground and everything else, you know, you're going to have to learn a new language, learn a new way of life, and experience something new, which I think is really important for your development as a person as well as a player. I think you could make a really good case that you just keep Balogun and you keep Eddie, because we've got Champions League football next season, and we've seen that this season 2 strikers is not enough, right? You need more depth at centre forward. So you could make a very good case that you could keep all 3. He signed a new long-term deal in 2021, so that's not really the big consideration. I suppose what the club will think is, could we bring in somebody a little bit more established, a little bit more mature, who can score with greater frequency than maybe a 21-year-old who's still developing and learning? Could we maximize the loan spell that Balogun has had in the transfer market, attract a very good fee for him, and then reinvest that money somewhere else? That wouldn't surprise me at all, which isn't to say I wouldn't be against keeping Balogun. I think he's doing really well. Clearly a player with a lot of potential, but I just wonder if the context of where we are as a football club and what we want to do in terms of raising the level might be a case that, you said it earlier, Sophie, we're going to have to start selling some players that we don't necessarily want to sell, or players that we like, or players we'd like to see get a chance. And I just have a sneaky feeling that he might be in that category.
Kev, I know you love him, and I know that you were questioning Eddie in terms of not short term, you know, you've been very complimentary about him coming in over a short period of time, doing a job. Look what he did when Jesus went out. We all felt like the sky was falling and that we were going to lose our momentum. Are you still in that same mindset? Like, would you keep them both? What would you do with Eddie and Osimhen is one that is talked about a lot. And are we going to go for that sexy name and the, $90 million pound price tag type player? What do you think?
Here's the best case scenario for me. I think because Eddie's couple of years ahead, playing wise, Eddie has come in and played in the first team. Last season, he's coming now when we really needed him to hit the ground running. He's coming, he's done well. I'm not saying he's better than Jesus or anything, but Eddie has done a job to keep our noses there. And then obviously the team has done well. The perfect scenario for us is this. Eddie's going to stay. He's just signed his new deal last year, so I can't see him going anywhere. I think Balogun, speak to Balogun, you find out what his people want to do. If he wants to stay, I think you can have a look at him. And then you find out. But if with Champions League football, Sophie, I think what the club could do is sell him on with a buyback clause. So if he goes to an AC Milan or whoever, sell him on, buyback clause, but you're selling him on knowing you're going to get Osimhen or somebody like that. Somebody significant. Or else what's the point in selling him? You might as well give him a goal and find out and let's see how we can dovetail. Because scoring goals in any league is important. But one thing, Balogun hasn't done it in the Premier League. So how are we going to find out if we don't give him a chance? We're not going to be that team now where we've got to be finding out about people. We're going to need people who are going to be able to do the job, Sophie. That's why being champions, we need to get there. Because again, that raises the bar.
Yeah, great points. Okay, here's one that I have for you guys there are two, actually. Why don't we go here? Because Emile Smith-Rowe is just, I don't even need to say it. He's just, wonderful. And we saw him play for England. He scored. It was great. Injury prone. Andrew's been compared to like, oh gosh, is this another Wilshere, a Diaby situation? Is his body just going to kind of be that way? What's your take on Emile Smith-Rowe? He seems to be one that many fans think we may cash in on. Can you see Arsenal removing him from the situation?
Not this season, not this summer. I think that there's a difference between Wilshere and Diaby and Smith-Rowe in terms of injuries, is that Wilshere and Diaby both suffered really serious injuries, more than one, whereas Smith-Rowe's had an ongoing problem that he's been playing with for basically his whole career, and they've done surgery to fix that. And we can, you can see what a player he is. He was our second highest goal scorer last season. They gave him the number 10 shirt. But this season has been pretty much a write-off for him. But I don't think that this is, I think it's way too soon to start thinking about moving him on. I do think some of Mikel Arteta's comments about him have been kind of, a little bit of a challenge to him about, we need to see you stay fit. We need to see you deliver.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing in any way. I think sometimes a player needs a bit of a push when they get to a point in their career. But it's probably, or maybe something you reassess this time next year. If he's had another indifferent season, if he hasn't been able to stay fit, then maybe you've got a decision to make in that regard. But I think he's really talented. I think he gives us something in areas that some of the other players don't have. He reminds me sometimes a little bit of Thomas Rosicky in the way that he can burst through the lines, the way that Rosicky could do that. And having a player like that, I think, is really, really interesting, and it's a good asset for the team. So I think he absolutely stays this summer, but I think he's got I think he's got a bit to prove, about staying fit, about taking his chances. I think the goal for England under 21s will do him loads of good, rebuild some of his confidence. And look, the thing is, he can't be match fit because he hasn't played all season. And as you get to the end of a season, it becomes more and more difficult to use a player who isn't match fit because the stakes are so high and it becomes like a catch-22 situation. So I'm hoping these under 21 games will do him some good. And then, when he comes back, we can get some minutes in under his belt. I think pretty much if we're going to win this title, everybody's got a big role to play. And I think he could be one of those guys who just chips in with a couple of goals in key games and key moments that we could look back on and say, hey, his season wasn't great, but when it came up trumps, he was there. So I'm optimistic about Smith Rowe. I think I have some concerns like everybody, but I think the talent is there, and I think they will try and harness that talent as much as they can.
Kev, you're a huge fan and have been 10 goals off the bench last season. If he can come off the bench for these last 10 games and get 5 of those goals, he makes a contribution, like Andrew says.
What?
You froze in time? You with us, Kev? Damn it. I thought we were on this roll and it was just a beautiful thing. And, we'll bring Kev back when he gets his internet up and running. Yeah. So Emile Smith Rowe, I'm going to add one now that I think is the biggest pickle of all. Any excuse. Gunner Balls, thank you for this. It will live in eternity. I think Kieran's become a cult hero. Would you?
He always was, though, wasn't he? Well, from the moment he arrived, everyone was like, "Look at him! He's out in the snow in his underpants, and he's carrying a Tesco bag." There was a sort of unassuming nature to him as a player. In this era where there's a lot of flash and a lot of bling and a lot of what was James Madison's 6,000-pound backpack or whatever it was, and Kieran Tierney's got his Tesco bag, So I think he always connected with people early on. And you know what? It's really interesting because, when he came in, he really raised the level, didn't he, at left back? Because we've been dealing with, Kolasinac, for example, and Granit Xhaka at left back was never an ideal solution. And Kieran Tierney came back in and he really made that position his own, but the team has evolved. The football has evolved. And I think that just might be the thing that makes the decision not for Kieran Tierney. I think that just it's sort of natural maybe at this point that he goes because he's very driven, very competitive, wants to play, but isn't going to play if Zinchenko is fit. And we've seen at times that this season, Mikel Arteta's used Tomiyasu at left back. So I love him. I think he's a great guy, but I suspect that this summer he will depart. And there's another one of those. You got to sell some players you don't really want to sell, players you like. Everyone likes Kieran Tierney, but he's someone who's going to want to play. He's not going to want to spend another season on the bench.
Yeah. Kev, he's struggling to get a game as a sub. And Andrew puts it right, doesn't he, in terms of the football's evolved. I don't think there's, anyone's fallen out of love with Kieran Tierney. It's just the football has evolved.
Yeah. I think Kieran Tierney, when he came on against, who was it? Against Palace, he looked really good. Obviously, he's got the bit between his teeth. He wants to prove himself. We all know what a good player he is. Let's be honest. And I still think there's a future for him at Arsenal because there's going to be a lot of football to be played next season with Champions League, etc. Zinchenko, although Zinchenko, what is he, 26? He's still pretty young, but I still think you need to be able to rotate and change and utilize the squad as best you can. But Kieran Tierney might want to be number one. And I can't knock him for it, to be honest. I can't knock him for it. If that's the case, I think then if we sell him, we're going to have to bring somebody else in. Because I think Tomiyasu obviously suffered with certain injuries. But I think Tomiyasu will be that gadget player, You know, he can fit in centre half. He can fit in right back if needed, left back if needed. So he could be that gadget player. But it would be sad for Kieran Tierney to go because I think the fan base, you know, really love him.
He's definitely one of those that you love and you don't want to see go, but you understand that sometimes these things have to happen in football. Right. 450 plus in live chat. Hug that like button for us.
Sophie, by the way.
Yes, Mr. Campbell.
ESR. I think the challenge is this for ESR. Go and prove you can play in Granit Xhaka's spot and take it.
There's a really interesting thing. There was an article on Sky Sports a couple of weeks back where they were talking about his rehabilitation from surgery, about how he's trying to find his burst again. You know, that speed you've got, and after surgery takes a while to come back. But the profile piece mentioned that he was playing in one of the 8 positions, not as a wide player, and that in training he's being deployed a bit more and more in there. So I do have a sneaky suspicion that might be part of the succession plan.
And Matt Roberts, among a few other squaddies, I was going to lob that into you, Kev, before we lost you. Could Xhaka help with ESR's development as Arteta sees Emil as a possible number 8?
So I think it can, but the actual part of the game that needs to be developed is the defensive side. That's the part that has to be developed. I think going forward, ESR, he can do some amazing things. We've seen it. He's hit double figures last season in goals. He can be a real difference maker going the other way. But it's defensively where Granit Xhaka and that number 8 spot, he's got it nailed down.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on the outgoings, and I didn't want this to be who you're buying because Andrew, I know at the end of the season after we win the title, we'll come back and we can do that. But there's just a few that I want to just couple together and get real quick. My mum taught me never to assume, but I'm assuming that you guys are keeping Patino and Austin Trusty, and you're also selling on Maitland-Niles, Runnison, Pablo Mari, and Cedric Soares.
I'm loaning Patino again. He's not ready. Trusty,
loan again,
I think. You know, we've got 2 left-footed center halves. The rest, yep, I agree with.
Okay, awesome stuff. All right, here's a quick 5 bit, and we'll do just a few of the finish the sentence because I had a ton for you. We'll you know, because we're running out of time here a little bit. The new segment, Oh My Word, I'm going to say a player's name and I want you to just give me one word. And this is for both of you, okay? So I'm going to start with you, Andrew. Bukayo Saka.
Star.
Kevin.
Diamond.
Ooh, diamond. Like that. Trossard, Andrew.
Panda.
Panda.
Just something to do with his black eyes. I don't know what it
I love that. Kev?
Flexible.
Flexible. Nice. Zinchenko. Andrew.
Eccentric.
Eccentric. Nice. Kev?
Technical.
Technical. Nice. Benjamin White. Andrew.
Wham.
Wham, as in wham bam. I am the man.
Exactly. He reminds me of George Michael. I don't know what it is.
I love that, Kev.
Well, I've got to say Benjamin White has got to be Bosch.
Bosch. I like that one. I love it. Okay, I've got one for you here. It's fun. Andrew, the old Xhaka and the new Xhaka. What?
So do I get one word or 2 words?
You get 2 words, one for the old and one for the new.
Frustrating, inspiring.
Nice. Super Kev.
Nightmare. Dream.
Like it. Okay, we've got to do captain. Odegaard.
Silky.
Kev.
Special.
And how about Mikel, Andrew?
Steely.
Super Kev.
Leader.
I like it. Okay. Oh, my word. I like that. Very good fun. Now, I'm going to have you finish the sentence. I'm just going to give you 3. Andrew, I start with you. I trust that some people have been saying, where's your Rob Holding in selling, in the selling of players? But I had this one for you for Rob Holding. I trust Rob Holding not to repeat his away performance at Spurs last season because
he's not as worried about his hair as he was back then. And also, I think that will have been a very painful learning moment for him.
Kev, do you trust him to come in for a couple games?
Yeah, I think he could do the job because the stakes are even higher now, and the team are playing a lot better. So if he's going to play, I expect him to be better.
Okay, let's do this one. If Mikel Arteta wins the Premier League title with this team this year, Andrew, he will be
an Arsenal managerial legend.
Kev, you going to go with that one?
Well, I think Andrew said it all there. If I'm honest, and I tell you what, so Mikel Arteta will have a very, very happy lawyer.
Well done, Kev. You have been very good, Esquire, for the last almost 3 years here. All right. If Arsenal beat Leeds United this weekend and Liverpool beat Manchester City, the Premier League title is, Andrew.
Still quite some way from being decided, but tilts in the favor of Arsenal.
Kev, we can't allow ourselves 11 points.
Are you ready? Are you ready? It's up for grabs now!
Oh my goodness.
The league will be up for grabs, especially at Anfield. If the results go our way, it's up for grabs.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll end on that one because that was just a brilliant way to end.
Can't beat that. Can't
beat that. We'll do a few more when we get Andrew back the next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just thought we'd have a little bit of fun during the interdull as well. Andrew, your closing statement. We always ask our guests to have their closings to deliver their closing statement. What do you want to leave the squaddies with this time around as we head into these last 10 games?
Just enjoy it. Enjoy what's ahead of us. Enjoy the challenge. Enjoy the potential. Like I said at the start, this is where we've wanted to be for a really long time. Where we're like a proper, genuine, dyed-in-the-wool title challenge with a competitive team that we all love, who play really good football. We've come through a lot of shit to get to this point. So whatever happens, enjoy it, because I don't think this is a one-off. I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think this is the first iteration of a new Arsenal that is going to excite us for some years to come. And don't let the excitement and the enjoyment of what we're doing this season pass you by, however it ends.
Very well said. Very well said. Absolutely brilliant. I don't have anything to add to that. Super Kev, it's over to you. Show is back live with Shaban Ahern tomorrow to talk a little Arsenal women. That will be an epic episode. And our Arsenal women playing Europe as well. Don't forget to support the women's team against Bayern Munich tomorrow night. Super Kev, I hand it over to you.
Okay, well, listen, squaddies, give the big respects to podcast royalty in Andrew, Arseblog. Thank you for coming on, Andrew. Really appreciate it. And you are so right with what you say. Sophie will agree. We've got to enjoy these moments. You've got to enjoy the nerves. build up to games and, enjoy every moment, because let me tell you something. 19 years ago, if somebody just said to you, Arsenal won't be in a title challenge, full title challenge until 19 years, you'd have put them in a straitjacket. You really would have at that time. So, again, squaddies, enjoy it. Man, woman, and children, we love you. Tell people that you love them. And always be kind. And remember, always be Arsenal. Look after yourself. Lots of love and take good care, everybody. At ease, squaddies. At ease.
At ease. And yeah, screw you, Rodri.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.